The bite is on my lower left calf. 48 hours ago, I wrapped it with a strip of flannel torn from a shirt I found in a hallway, tied it off, and pulled my sock up over it. No one has looked that low. They check faces, arms, hands, necks. No one thinks about calves. The group I'm with has 5 people, including me. Walt Bremer is moving up ahead, cutting between 2 cars left in the middle of the road on Brunker Road, just south of Cessnock. He's got a framing hammer on his belt and a length of pipe in his right hand. Walt was in construction. He told me that the first night, when we were still figuring out who everyone was, he moves like he's used to carrying weight, and he doesn't waste steps. That's worth more than most things right now. Pauline Streck is behind him. She's in her mid-50s, hair gone grey at the roots, and she keeps a butcher knife, my butcher knife, technically tucked into a canvas bag on her left hip. She took it from me the second night when I was asleep, and when I brought it up, she looked at me like I'd asked for something that wasn't mine. I let it go. She's more useful with it than she lets on. The woman knows how to be quiet, and quiet is the main currency out here. Dessa Holt is 2 cars back, watching the cross street. She's 32, used to manage a retail store on Hunter Street before all this. And she has that particular kind of calm that comes from years of dealing with things going wrong and not being allowed to panic about it. She's carrying a pry bar she picked up outside a hardware store on the first day, and she uses it well. She doesn't talk unless she's making a call, and when she makes one, the others listen. Stu Carrigan is last, 27, office work, and it shows. He's not bad, he's not built for this yet. He keeps his hands in his pockets when they should be free. He watches the turned ones too long, like he's still trying to understand what he's looking at. The first time he had to put one down, it took 4 attempts with a piece of rebar. Dessa finished it. He hasn't slept more than a couple of hours at a stretch since. We're moving northeast. The plan, if you call it that, is to reach an industrial zone on the edge of Broad Meadow, where Walt says there's a trucking depot with a secure yard and a lockable roller door. He drove past it once a week for 2 years delivering materials. He says the fence is solid and the office has a bathroom with a tank toilet. We've been without running water for 36 hours. That detail matters more than anything else right now. The world broke in a specific order, and I've been watching the sequence. First, the phone networks dropped. Not all at once, but in rolling dead patches that spread from the outer suburbs inward. Then the emergency broadcasts, which were useful for about 6 hours before the information they were giving started contradicting itself. Then fuel queues at every servo that turned into arguments, that turned into something else. Water pressure dropped in the afternoon of day 2, not out, just reduced, then out completely by morning of day 3. In most of the areas we passed through, power went in stages. Some blocks still have it. The grid isn't gone yet, it's just unreliable. You see lights in windows sometimes, random, and you can't predict which street will have them. The food situation is worse than most people planned for. I've seen 2 supermarkets from the outside, both stripped, both with broken frontage, where people went through in a hurry. The IGA on the main road still had product on the shelves the first day, but somebody got there before us. What's left in houses and sheds and vehicle boots and back cupboards is what there is. We've been finding things in pieces. A pantry in an unlocked house gives you 3 days. A cache in a garden shed gives you something more. You never find enough in one place. I am not going to Broad Meadow. I mean, I'll go as far as the group goes, and I'll do what I need to stay with them until I don't have to anymore. But my actual destination is a daycare center on a residential street off Lambton Road, about 4 kilometers from where we are now. My cousin Terry's boy, Leo, was dropped there the morning the first reports came through. Leo is 5. Terry didn't get him out in time. I know this because I was with Terry when the crowd at the evacuation point hit critical and there was no going back. I need to tell you what I did at that evacuation point. I need to tell it straight. There was a car, a blue Holden Commodore, parked 40 meters from the east gate of the processing center at Wallsend. The owner had left it running. She'd gotten out in a hurry and left the driver door open and the keys in the ignition. The crowd was moving the wrong direction, away from the gate, and people were going down. Terry had been separated from me by 2 rows of people pressing in from the left. I could hear him, but I couldn't see him. I had two choices: go back into that crowd and find him, or take the car. I took the car. I told myself I would circle back. I didn't circle back. I drove south for 20 minutes before one of the turns came through a side fence near a service station, and I clipped it with the bumper and went off the road into a drainage ditch. That's where the bite happened, not from the one I hit. There was a second one already down in that ditch, tangled in grass and debris, and when I climbed out of the driver's door it had my leg. Before I even registered, it was there. I got free. I don't want to describe how, but I got free, and I bound the wound as tight as I could, and I walked 3 streets before I found the group sheltering in the back of a panel beater's yard. I didn't tell them about the bite. I told them I'd cut my leg on the car door, broken glass from the accident. I pulled my sock up and kept moving. That was 48 hours ago. The reason I know what the bite means, the full reason, is that I watched a man turn on the first morning of the outbreak. His name was Darren Pruitt. He was a regular at the same TAB I used to go to on Wednesday nights. He got bitten on the hand by what we were calling at that point a sick person. Before anyone had language for it, he wrapped the hand himself. He seemed fine for an hour. Then he stopped responding to questions and started moving toward the sound of voices rather than the source of them. He was gone in under 10 minutes. Then he was back up, not the same way he went down. But I've also seen something else. I've seen people linger. The woman in the yellow coat at the Walsend gate, bitten on the upper arm, was still coherent 7 hours later, still arguing with a soldier about her rights, still herself. A man Walt described from a shelter they'd passed through before I joined them, bitten on the foot, lasted 2 days before he went. The timeline isn't fixed, and that single fact is the only reason I'm still telling myself there's a clock instead of a verdict. The wound is worse today than yesterday. I can feel the difference when I walk, not dramatically, but the pull is there, and the skin around the bandage is hot through my sock. I've been adjusting my stride so the group doesn't notice the drag in my left foot. Stu noticed yesterday and asked if I'd hurt myself. I said old soccer injury. He nodded and forgot it. Walt stops between 2 cars and holds up a closed fist. Everyone goes still. He's heard something. There's a sound from the ground floor of a brick house 40 meters to our right. Something inside is pressing into a door, rhythmically, with no variation in the pace or force. The turn-do that they press into a barrier and keep pressing because they don't tire and they don't redirect unless a better signal comes along. This one has been in there a while by the sound of it. The door is holding. Walt looks at Dessa. She gives one small shake of her head. We're not going in. We move past. The suburb we're moving through has the particular quiet that settles after people have already left. Not empty, there are things everywhere. Shoes in the gutter, a shopping cart on its side with bags of rice split open on the road, a dog working at something near a letterbox that none of us look at directly. But the noise of the first wave is gone. The running and the screaming that went with the first 48 hours has settled into what's left when panic doesn't need anything from you anymore. We pass a primary school with the front gates standing open. Someone has sprayed "Do not enter sick" inside on the wall in red. Below it, different handwriting. Water in gym still safe. June 4. June 4th was 3 days ago. Walt slows but doesn't stop. Dessa keeps walking. We all keep walking. I think about Leo every 30 seconds. I don't have a clear picture of him. I was never the kind of cousin who showed up to birthdays. I've met him maybe 4 times. Small, dark hair, and Terry always said he goes very quiet when he's scared. Doesn't cry, just goes quiet. I don't know if that's better or worse for where he is now. The daycare, sunny patch, early learning. I remember Terry saying the name once is in a converted bungalow on a residential street off Lambton Road. Not a large place. Terry said they had maybe 12 children on a normal day. The morning the outbreak started was not a normal day, so I don't know how many would have been there when parents stopped coming back. I need Leo to still be there. I need him to be alive. And I need the staff to have kept the doors locked. And I need whatever time I have left to be enough to get him somewhere better. Walt pulls us into a narrow alley between 2 semi-detached houses and crouches down. Everyone drops. Fuel drums, he says, voice very low. Hardware yard on the right. I saw the sign. We need to check it. Fuel's no good without something to run it, Dessa says. The yard might have a generator, or we trade it. Pauline says nothing. She's watching the far end of the alley. Stu is looking at me. I don't know why. I look back at Walt. Let's look, I say. The hardware yard is locked with a chain and padlock on the front gate, but the side fence is corrugated iron, and one panel has come loose at the bottom. Dessa pulls it open, and we go through one at a time. The yard smells like oil and wet cardboard. There are pallets stacked along one wall, and a row of steel shelving units holding fuel drums, most empty, 3 with orange flammable stickers. Walt finds a generator under a tarp near the back wall. Large, commercial grade, and it's been recently connected. An extension cable is still plugged into the output socket. He checks the fuel tank. Not empty. Diesel, he says. Enough for a day, maybe. I move along the shelving and find a first aid kit mounted on the wall near the door of a small office. The proper kind, not a travel box, the full commercial type that workplaces are required to have. I take it off the bracket and open it. Bandages, gauze, medical tape, antiseptic wipes, paracetamol, a pair of gloves. I close it and put it in my pack. Pauline watches me put the kit in my bag. That should go in the common supplies, she says. I'll put back what I don't use, I say. That's not how it works. Pauline. Dessa doesn't even look up from the shelves. Leave it. Pauline leaves it, but she holds her eyes on me for another few seconds before she turns away. In the small office, I find 2 things that matter: a sealed box of protein bars and a detailed street map of Newcastle pinned to the wall above the desk. I don't take the map off the wall. Someone might need to follow us here later. I study it. Lambton Road, running northeast from where we are. Sunny Patch is about 3 blocks off it to the left. I've got the route now. The office has a narrow window facing the street. While I'm studying the map, I see movement on the pavement outside. 3 of the turned moving in a loose group, not together. They don't coordinate, but something drew them to the same sound source, and they're moving the same direction. East. Away from us. I wait until they're past the window. Then I go back to the group. We stay in the hardware yard for 2 hours. Walt examines the generator. Dessa confirms 2 of the fuel drums still have contents. Stu finds a water tank on a stand at the back, gravity fed from a roof collector, and it has maybe 40 liters still in it. We fill every container we have. 40 liters between 5 people. At the rate we're using it, that's 2 days, maybe 3 if we're careful. I drink my share and try not to think about whether I'll be around to need a second day of it. While the others rest and sort supplies, I go to the far corner of the yard behind the pallet stack and unwrap the bandage on my calf. The bite marks are clear 2 curved lines, the kind only a mouth makes. The skin around them has darkened, a purple-red ring about 3 centimeters wide. No pus, but the heat coming off it is significant. I clean it as well as I can with antiseptic wipes from the kit, layer fresh gauze, wrap it with medical tape, better than the flannel it holds under the sock without bunching. I sit for a moment with my back against the wall and my knee up and my sock down. I think about the immediate, practical problem. I need to get to the daycare. I need to do it without the group, or I need to get ahead of their route and diverge without making it a conversation, because a conversation leads to questions about why I'm going that direction alone, and those questions lead somewhere I'm not ready to go. Or I could tell them, right now. I could walk back out there and say, there is something I haven't told you, and here it is. I pull the sock up and stand. I don't tell them. We leave the hardware yard in the early afternoon. Walt wants to cover as much ground as possible before dark. Late autumn in New South Wales means dusk, around 5:30. We've got 4 hours if we're moving. We move. The streets between the hardware yard and the Broadmeadow route are residential. Brick veneer houses, mostly, with front gardens already looking abandoned after only a few days without maintenance. Cars on lawns, some positioned deliberately to block driveways. Windows boarded on some houses, not on others. On one street, someone has run a garden hose from the front tap to a row of buckets at the front door. The tap is still running. which means the mains are holding in this section. We stop and fill up again. The house has curtains drawn on every window. The front door is shut. I can hear something inside, low, slow movement. Furniture being dragged in another room. We fill the bottles and we go. Walt has the police rifle, he hasn't said where it came from, and no one's pushed it. An old bolt action that takes a magazine, and he's got 12 rounds. He hasn't fired it since I've been with the group. He carries it on a strap across his back with the barrel down, and only brings it forward when we're in open ground. He knows what the sound of a gunshot does. You fire out here, you announce your position to everything within half a kilometer that can still walk toward a noise. The turned don't communicate with each other, but they converge on sound. Everyone learned that in the first 12 hours. That was when people were still using car alarms and air horns, and shouting for each other across empty streets. By hour 24, that had mostly stopped. We're 3 blocks from where we need to turn toward Broadmeadow when we find the checkpoint. It's not a government checkpoint. 2 cars have been pushed across the intersection at an angle, not quite touching, with a gap of about a meter between them. On the far side, 3 men are standing. One has a rifle, one has what looks like a shotgun. The third is holding a length of chain. Behind them, on the pavement, there are 2 body bags, the kind from emergency kits, and an upturned shopping trolley being used as a low barrier. Walt stops. He doesn't reach for his rifle. The man with the shotgun steps forward. He's in his 40s, heavy set, wearing a high-vis vest over a long-sleeve shirt. That's far enough. Where are you coming from? Panel beater on Douglas Road, Walt says. Not where we actually were. Smart. Hardware yard before that. Anyone bitten? The man's eyes move across the group, one at a time. No, Walt says. Then he looks at each of us. Anyone? Dessa shakes her head. Pauline shakes her head. Stu shakes his and looks at his shoes. I shake my head. The man with the shotgun holds his eyes on me a beat longer than the others. I hold his gaze and don't look away. We're not asking you to prove it, he says finally. But if anyone in your group has a bite and you're hiding it, you understand what happens when it turns while you're all sleeping. Understood, Walt says. The heavy-set man steps back. Road through here is closed. The biters have a pocket built up on the east side of the Turton Road intersection. You want to go northeast? Go around. Stay on Brunker. Take it north. Cross at the railway line. What's at the railway line? Dessa asks. A pedestrian bridge. Nobody at it right now, which is better than some alternatives. We thank them and go around. The reroute adds 40 minutes to the walk. Walt isn't happy about the time, but he doesn't push back on the advice. He knows what a built-up pocket looks like. And he's not risking the group on a direct route when there's another option. My cough is getting worse. The bandage has shifted again, ridden up under the sock, and there's a section of the wrap pressing directly against the bite site. The discomfort is manageable, but it's changing my stride. I'm compensating without thinking, shifting weight to the right side on the longer steps. Dessa has been walking behind me for 2 blocks. I drop back behind Stu. Better if no one is reading my left leg from behind. We reach the railway bridge as the afternoon light starts to angle. The bridge is narrow concrete with railings on both sides. The drop to the tracks below about 6 meters. There's a woman sitting at the near end with her back against the railing and a baby in a carrier on her chest. She looks up when we approach, and her face tells things before she says a word. Pauline goes to her immediately. She crouches and speaks low, and the woman answers in short pieces. The baby's name is Harriet, 8 months old. The woman's name is Gail Forsyth, and she's been sitting on that bridge for 11 hours because she doesn't know which direction is safer to walk. The baby is alive. I can see the slow rise and fall in the carrier. Gail is not bitten, as far as we can see. Walt looks at Dessa. Dessa looks at me. Nobody says it out loud, but the question is in the air. Do we take them? Get up, Dessa says to Gail, not unkindly. Come with us. Keep the baby quiet. Gail Forsyth stands. She has nothing except what's on her and what's in the carrier bag off her right shoulder. She falls in with the group without another word. 6 of us now. 7, if you count Harriet. The railway bridge is clear. The tracks below are not two of the turned, moving along the gravel between the rails, slow and directionless. Not looking up, we cross without sound. On the other side, Walt picks up the pace. I feel it in my leg. I adjust. The trucking depot sits on a service road running parallel to the railway, set behind a wire mesh fence with razor wire at the top. Walt was right about the fence, proper commercial grade. Heavy steel posts sunk in concrete, mesh panels bolted, not the residential clip-together type. The vehicle gate is padlocked. Walt walks the fence line north until he finds a service door, also padlocked. He looks at Dessa. She produces the pry bar. It takes 6 minutes and some noise, but the service door opens. We go inside and chain it from the inside using a length of chain Dessa finds on the ground, threaded through the handle and looped around a post. The depot yard is large, 3 semi-trailers in bays on the left, a long office building on the right, an open central area. The roller door on the main vehicle entrance is down with a manual lock bar across it. The office building has 8 rooms, a reception area, 3 small offices, a lunchroom with a commercial fridge, currently off and warm, 2 storerooms, a bathroom. The bathroom has the tank toilet Walt described, still has pressure from the cistern. We can flush it. That is a larger deal than it sounds. 1 storeroom has sealed cases of bottled water, the kind trucking companies keep for long-haul drivers. Walt opens the storeroom and stands looking at the cases for a moment. "We can stay here a few days," he says. "We eat in the lunchroom. Protein bars from my pack, crackers from Pauline's bag, the last of Dessa's dried fruit." Nobody talks much. Gail nurses Harriet in the corner. Stu sits near the window watching the yard through the glass. This is the moment I could say it. Every quiet moment is a moment where the words are available. Simple words. "I got bitten 2 days before I found you. It's on my lower left calf. I hid it from you, and I need you to know. I eat a protein bar, and I don't say it." After the meal, Pauline pulls everyone into the main office for what she calls a situation review. She's drawn a rough map on the back of a delivery receipt she found on the counter, marking the hardware yard, the checkpoint, the bridge, and the depot. She's placed question marks in 3 other areas where she thinks resources might exist. "The chemist on Lambton Road," she says, pointing to one of the marks. "Small, but they'll have medical supplies, paracetamol, antibiotics if we're lucky." "Lambton Road. That's my road. I know where that is," I say. "I can go in the morning, on my own if you want." "Why on your own?" Pauline says. "Smaller profile. Less noise. I grew up near here." "That part's true." Walt thinks about it. "Take Dessa." "I would rather not take Dessa, because Dessa notices things," but I nod. That night I sleep in the second office with my pack as a pillow. I wake at 2 in the morning from a noise that turns out to be a cat, an actual live cat that has gotten into the depot through a gap somewhere and is moving across the desk in the dark. It sits and looks at me. Then it leaves. I watch the gap under the door for another hour before I sleep again. Before that hour of watching the door, there's a longer period of just lying there going through the situation. The depot is solid. Walt was right about that. The fence held against whatever tested it during the first night, and the roller door on the vehicle entrance has not shifted. The water supply in the storeroom changes everything. For the first time since the outbreak, I'm in a place where dying of thirst in the next 48 hours is not a realistic outcome for the others. I'm not thinking about myself in those calculations anymore. It would be a waste of time. What I'm thinking about is Leo, 5 years old in a locked building with 2 people who are not his family, who have been doing their best for 4 days with limited supplies and no contact with the outside. I've met Rhonda Tabert exactly once, at a family thing Terry hosted at his flat 2 years ago, briefly. Because Terry is the type of person who shows up where he's needed, and he helped Rhonda with something at the center, and she came to say thanks. I don't remember what I was doing that day. Something to do with a bet that hadn't paid off. I wasn't paying attention. I'm paying attention now. The leg is worse when I wake. Not dramatically, I can still walk, still carry full weight, but the heat has spread above the knee. I can feel it when I press my hand to the outside of my jeans. I don't press my hand to my jeans when anyone can see. Dessa and I leave for Lambton Road at first light. She doesn't ask about the limp directly. About 10 minutes in, she asks, "How's the leg?" Flat, not soft, like she's asking about a task. "Sore," I say. "Old injury." She looks ahead. "Soccer?" "Yeah." She doesn't follow it up, but she's shorter on her next sentence than she was before, and I know she doesn't fully buy it. Lambton Road runs northeast, and the morning is grey and still. We pass a petrol station where someone has siphoned all the forecourt fuel nozzles dangling off their hoses, pulled free in a hurry. A chicken has escaped from somewhere and is standing in the middle of the road looking at us. We go around it. 3 of the turned are visible on a front lawn and neighbouring driveway, about 80 metres ahead. Not oriented toward us yet. We cross to the far footpath and keep our steps even, and our voices shut. The turned move differently to living people. The comparison I keep coming back to is a radio with bad reception. They function, but the signal is wrong. Movements are functional but not directed. They respond to inputs rather than pursue intentions. Get close enough, make the wrong sound, and they reorient. At distance, in stillness, they're just wrong-looking people doing nothing in particular. We pass the lawn without triggering any of them. The chemist is 2 blocks further. A small shopfront with a security grill, still partially down over the front window. Someone locked it on the way out. The main door is glass, and it's been broken. Dessa checks the frame before we go in. No blood, just broken glass from someone who kicked it open in a hurry. Inside is quiet and mostly intact. The front shelves, sunscreen, vitamins, cosmetics, have been knocked over in sections, products scattered. But the dispensary at the back is behind a counter with a lock on the half door at the end, and that lock is intact. Dessa goes over the counter instead of through it, taller than she looks, and she pulls herself up in one clean motion. "What do we need?" She calls from behind the counter. "Antibiotics, if any are there, gauze, antiseptic, wound dressings, fever medication." A pause. Then, "You know, everything you just described sounds like infected wound care. It's for the group," I say. "All of it's useful regardless." She comes back over the counter with an armful of supplies and puts them on the floor and starts sorting without looking at me. Amoxicillin 3 boxes, sealed, gauze rolls, a waterproof wound dressing kit, paracetamol and ibuprofen. "Ryan," she says. "Yeah. If someone in the group had a wound, a bad one, infected, would you want to know about it?" The question sits there between us. "Yes," I say. "Right," she says. She hands me the antibiotic boxes, and we don't say anything else about it. We walk back by a different route. I study the streets we take, anything that puts me closer to the residential block off Lambton, where the daycare is. I clock a left turn I'll need, and a gap between 2 back fences that would cut 200 meters off the approach. Back at the depot, Walt and Stu are moving water cases from the storeroom to the lunchroom. Gail is feeding Harriet. Pauline is in the yard watching the main gate. I go to the second office, close the door, and take 3 amoxicillin capsules from one of the boxes I'm keeping in my pack. The instructions say 2 capsules twice daily. I take 3. I don't know if it makes any difference if the bite is what I know it is. Antibiotics aren't the variable. But if there's a secondary infection on top of it, the medication might buy me something. Any time is worth having. The second morning in the depot. The argument starts before breakfast. Pauline has been going through the supply count, and she presents it at what she's calling the morning check-in, a thing she's instituted, which the others tolerate. She's made a list of what went into each person's pack from the chemist run. "Ryan took amoxicillin from the pharmacy supplies," she says. "I put down what I took," I say. "You took capsules from a sealed box. The box is in your pack, not in the common supply. I've been taking capsules for an infected wound on my leg. It's minor. The antibiotics are doing what they're supposed to." Walt looks at my leg, not my face. "My leg. Show me," he says. "It's under control." "Ryan, show me the leg." I look at the room. Pauline, arms crossed. Dessa, watching the floor. Stu near the door. Gail in the corner with Harriet. I pull up my jeans and pull down my sock. The bandage is blood-spotted at the center, and the skin visible above and below the tape is swollen and dark. It doesn't look like a glass cut. We all know that. Pauline leaves the room. She comes back 30 seconds later with the pry bar and holds it toward Walt. Walt doesn't take it. He holds up one hand and she keeps hold of it herself. "Unwrap it," he says to me. I peel back the tape and the gauze. The bite is clear, the two curved lines, the discoloration, the heat coming off it. Stu makes a sound in his throat and steps back into the doorframe. "How long?" Walt asks. 48 hours before I found you, so more than 4 days total. 4 days and you haven't turned. No. That we know of, Pauline says from the doorway. I know. I've been checking. I'm still here. Walt sits down on the edge of the desk. He puts his hands flat on his thighs and looks at the wall. The room is quiet for a long time. You've been sleeping in here with us for 2 nights, Pauline says. I know. With the baby. I know. I wrap the wound back. Up. My hands are steady. I wasn't going to put anyone at risk. You can't get it by proximity. It has to be direct contact. A bite. A scratch from the turned. You all know what the transmission is. We know what they're saying the transmission is, Dessa says. We don't know for certain what it actually is. That's fair. I don't answer it. The conversation that follows takes close to 40 minutes. The same fears go around in circles. Dessa is the only one who asks me any practical questions. She asks how the bite happened. I tell her about the ditch and the car. She asks if I've had any confusion or lost time. I tell her no. She asks if I have somewhere I'm trying to get to. I tell her about Leo. I tell her about Terry and the evacuation and what I did. I tell the whole of it, not the version I'd been rehearsing in my head, where the car theft sounded more like a survival call and less like what it was. I tell it straight. Walt's face doesn't change during any of it. Pauline's does. Stu looks out the window. When I finish, Dessa says, the daycare on Lambton, the converted bungalow. Yeah, I know that street. 4 blocks from here. I know. You've known since we got here. Yes. Walt stands and goes to the window and looks at the yard. You're not staying with us. You understand that? Yes. Not because of the car, because of the bite. I understand. Dessa, give him the amoxicillin. All 3 boxes. Pauline starts to say something. Walt turns from the window and she stops. But before that happens, the day has one more thing to deal with. The sound comes from the main vehicle gate at 3 in the afternoon, the roller door taking an impact from outside. Then voices, male, 3 at minimum. The sound of something heavy being dragged across the access road gravel. Walt is at the window in 2 steps. 4 men, he says, very low. One of them's got a bolt cutter. The bolt cutter is on the padlock of the main vehicle gate. The gate starts to swing open. Walt brings the rifle off his back. Dessa has the pry bar. I take the butcher knife from the lunchroom drawer where I'd found it 2 days earlier wrapped in an old cloth. Not my knife, but mine now. Gail, Dessa says, you and Harriet, storeroom, door closed. Don't open it until I knock twice. Gail goes. Stu watches her go, then looks at me. Stu, I say. Office with the inside lock. You stay out of this one. He doesn't argue. He goes. The 4 men come through the vehicle gate. They're not in good shape, clothes dirty, one with a bandage around his forearm, all of them moving fast and checking behind them like they've been running for a while. The man with the bolt cutter is young, maybe 20. The one in front is older, thick-set, with a pistol on his hip. They haven't seen us. They're scanning the yard, looking at the trailers, looking at the office building. Walt steps out of the office doorway with the rifle up. Stop there, he says. The 4 men stop. The older one looks at the rifle. He looks at the pistol on his own hip. He makes the calculation bolt action at this range. At least one more person visible in a doorway behind the rifleman. He takes his hand away from his hip. We're not here for trouble, the older man says. No one ever is, Walt says. What are you running from? Group on Turton Road. They hit our shelter this morning. We lost 3 people. Lost them how? To that group. Walt keeps the rifle level. Did you bring them here? We lost them 2 streets back. We've been moving for an hour. How do you know they gave up? The older man doesn't answer that immediately, which is an answer. Walt looks at Dessa. She shakes her head. We can't take you in, Walt says. But we'll give you 10 minutes to rest, and we'll give you water. Then you go through the service door and head north. Not back the way you came. That's what we have, Walt says. The older man nods. The 10 minutes stretch to 20. During that time I hear the third man, the one who'd been quiet, say something low to the young one about the bitten one in the second office. He's looked through a window. He thinks Stu is bitten. Or he's guessing. Or he's heard something from outside that he's putting together wrong. I'm standing near the service door with my back to the wall and the butcher knife at my side. The third man is between me and Walt. He turns and sees me and says, clearly, it's in here. The bitten one is in here with them. The older man's hand goes back to his pistol. I step forward. If you draw that, the man with the rifle puts you down before it clears the holster, and then your people have no one leading them, and no plan, and no water, standing in a closed yard with whatever's still following you, and both of us know it hasn't fully given up yet. The third man is still talking, fast, to the older one, saying we've been hiding it, saying we're a risk, saying they should take the supplies and go. Walt has the rifle on the older man's center mass. The older man looks at me, at the rifle, at his own group scared, tired, fractured. He takes his hand off the pistol. We're leaving, he tells his men. Now. The third man starts to argue. The older man turns to him and says his name Graham and nothing else, and Graham stops. They take their water and they go through the service door and they don't look back. Walt waits 3 minutes after they've gone, then does a full walk of the fence line. He comes back and says the fence is intact and the road outside the vehicle gate is clear. He looks at me. That was calm, he says. I've worked in an abattoir, I say. You learn to stay composed in complicated rooms. He almost smiles. Not quite. An hour later, the group does what Walt said they would. They give me the amoxicillin all 3 boxes, a day and a half of water rations in 2 sealed bottles, the butcher knife and the protein bars. Walt separates the revolver from a locked box in the truck driver's locker in the office compact. 4 rounds in the cylinder. He hands it to me without comment. Dessa gives me the wound dressing kit. She doesn't say anything when she hands it over. Pauline stands at the window with her back to the room. Stu shakes my hand. His grip is firmer than I expected. I hope the boy's there, he says. I tell him I hope so too. Gail looks up when I pass and says, quietly, thank you for handling it earlier with those men. I nod and I go. The service door closes behind me. The chain rattles on the inside as someone threads it back through. I stand on the service road and get my bearings. Northeast, 4 blocks. Left at the intersection with the red postbox. I check the revolver before I move. 4 rounds in the cylinder, all seated properly. I close it and put it back in my jacket pocket. The butcher knife goes into the waistband on the right side where I can reach it without crossing my body. The pack on my back has the water and the protein bars and the antibiotic boxes. The wound dressing kit is in the front pocket where I can get to it one-handed. I've been keeping things organized for days now, even when the rest of me wasn't. I think about the last time I had a plan that stretched further than an hour in front of me. It was the day of the evacuation, driving to the processing center, Terry in the passenger seat telling me to slow down, and me telling him we had time. We didn't have time. Nobody did. But I was the kind of person who assumed that time was always on his side until proven otherwise. A gambling habit will do that to you. You keep expecting the next hand to turn. That's done now. I'm not waiting for the next hand. I start walking. The afternoon is cooling. The light is going horizontal. Long shadows across a row of terrace houses with dark windows. A car with 2 flat tires listing into the gutter. A child's scooter, on its side at the foot of a front step. I don't look at the scooter. 1 block out, 3 of the turned are moving on the same footpath ahead of me. I cross to the opposite side and keep my pace even. 2 don't orient. The third, a woman in a blue work shirt turns her head slowly toward me for a moment. That particular signal picking up swivel. I freeze. She swivels back. I cross the next intersection quickly and put a parked delivery van between us. My leg is bad enough now that I've stopped hiding the limp. There's nobody to hide it from. The heat from the wound has been consistent all the way up the left side to the hip for most of the day, and there's a sensation in the left knee. I don't have a name for somewhere between pressure and pull, steady on every stride. I think about Darren Pruitt. Under 10 minutes. I think about the woman in the yellow coat. 7 hours. I think about 4 days, 9 hours since the ditch. The left turn at the red post box brings me to a residential street of detached houses, old-growth trees on the verge, the roots lifting the footpath in sections. One house has a cattle dog in the front garden, a live one, watching me from the other side of the fence without barking. I stop and look at it. It watches me back, ears forward. Then it turns and goes to the back of the garden. I keep moving. Sunny patch. Early learning is a brick bungalow, second from the corner. The sign is still on the gatepost laminated. A cartoon sun, a row of small figures holding hands. The front windows have been covered from the inside with butcher paper. The gate to the front garden is shut, but not locked. There is light from behind the butcher paper. Something glowing inside, lower battery lantern or a torch. Someone is in there. I open the gate and go to the front door and knock 3 times. A pause, then twice. Not any particular code, just not the sound of random impact. Silence from inside. My name is Ryan Fenn, I say, close to the door, not loud. I'm Terry Fenn's cousin, Leo Fenn's family. I'm looking for the boy. A longer silence. Then from behind the door, how do I know that's true? A woman's voice, tight and careful. Terry's boy is 5. Dark hair, goes quiet when he's scared. Terry said his emergency contact at the center was, "Rhonda, is that you? He told me if anything went wrong I should come here." A pause. Then the sound of a lock turning, then a dead bolt, and the door opens 6 centimeters on a security chain. A woman's face in the gap, 40s, dark circles under her eyes, hair pulled back. She looks at me for a long moment. "You've been bitten," she says. I look down. The sock has ridden below the bandage, and the discoloration is visible above the tape. I look back up. "Yes," I say. She stares at me without moving. 4 days and I'm still here, I say. "I'm not asking to stay with you. I need to see Leo, and I need to get him and whoever's with him to somewhere safer. I've got maybe until morning, maybe less. But right now I'm here, and I need to know if he's alive." The chain comes off the door. Her name is Rhonda Tabbitt, and she has been in the daycare with Leo and 2 other children and another staff member named Keith Andover since the morning the outbreak started. The 2 other children were collected, one by a parent on day 2, one by an aunt. Leo's parents didn't come. Nobody came for Leo. Leo is in the back room with Keith. "He's been sleeping a lot," Rhonda says. "He went quiet on the 2nd day and hasn't been eating much. But his temperature is normal, and he's showing no signs of anything except being a frightened 5-year-old who doesn't understand why no one has come for him." She takes me to the back room. Leo is on a children's mat on the floor under a classroom blanket. He's awake. He looks at me when I come in. I don't know what he sees. I haven't looked in a mirror in 4 days. There's a 3-day beard and whatever 4 days of fever has done to my face. I crouch down slowly, the leg won't take speed, and get to his level. "Hey, Leo," I say. "I'm Ryan, your dad's cousin." He looks at me. He doesn't speak. "Your dad asked me to come find you. I'm going to get you somewhere better. There are other people there, and you'll be safe." He looks at me for a long moment. Then he holds up a small toy, a plastic stegosaurus, green, one hind leg missing. "That can come too," I say. Keith Andover is 31, a tall man who looks like he used up his reserves 3 days ago and has been running on something else since. He's been managing the food rotation and keeping the water containers filled from the rainwater tank in the back garden. He's calm in the way of someone who exhausted all his panic early and has been working on a baseline of tired competence since. I lay out what I know in the kitchen while Rhonda gets Leo to eat something crackers. A small tin of peaches she opens with the handle of a spoon pressed into the lid. I tell Keith about the checkpoint on Turton Road and what the man there said about a farm road checkpoint still holding on the highway north of the city. I know the farm road. I've driven it a dozen times on the way to a property outside Cessnock, where a friend of mine used to work. It runs off the main highway behind a hill, and it has a gate that was listed as a government-managed muster point in an emergency notice that went in the paper the week before the outbreak. The kind of notice you don't read at the time. I read it. I nearly didn't. There's a school bus depot, I say, on the service road behind the rail yard, about 300 meters west of here. I saw it when we came into the area, buses in a secured lot. If one of them is serviceable, it'll hold all of us. 18 kilometers on a sealed road to the farm checkpoint. The bus does it easily. Keith looks at me. Can you drive a bus? I can start one. Driving it is just driving a longer car. Can you start it without a key? I know how ignition columns work. I've started enough vehicles without keys. I leave the rest of that sentence where it is. We leave the daycare at 6 in the evening. Rhonda has packed what she can: food, water, classroom blankets, the small first aid box from the building. Keith carries Leo on his back. Leo has the stegosaurus. He hasn't said a word since I arrived, but he's watching everything very carefully with those dark eyes. I take the rear. The leg is significantly worse than this morning. I'm carrying all my weight on the right side and using fence lines for support where I can reach them. It's slow, but I'm moving. 2 of the turned on the route to the bus depot. The first is in a driveway, not oriented toward us. I signal Rhonda and Keith and we angle wide, staying near the far side of the road. The second is ahead on the footpath, facing our direction, close enough that noise within 20 meters would bring it to us. I go ahead alone. I move wide of it, slowly, toward the roadway, giving it a broad angle so there's no direct line. It tracks me slightly but doesn't commit that partial swivel where the signal isn't strong enough to lock in. I stop. It stops. I take 1 step back. The signal loses me and pulls towards something else. Probably the dog I heard 2 streets over. It swivels away. I wave the others forward, and we go around it in the roadway. Leo doesn't make a sound. He presses his face into Keith's shoulder and doesn't look until I say, very quietly, "Okay." The bus depot is a chain mesh enclosure with a sliding gate, padlocked, 7 buses inside, from what I can see at the gate. 4 full-size school buses, the standard orange, and 3 smaller ones. 2 of the full-size buses are backed in near the fence, and I can see the rear markings and emergency exits. There's a maintenance shed beside the fence, and it's unlocked. I find a bolt cutter inside. The padlock on the gate takes me 6 minutes. My hands are slower than they should be. The fever is in them now, a dull heat in my palms when I grip the handles. But the padlock comes apart and the gate slides. We're inside. The nearest full-size bus has 2 flat tires. The second one in the back row is intact. I get into the driver's seat. The steering column casing is a type I've worked with. I get the casing off with the blade of the butcher knife, and I find the wiring harness inside. Rhonda stands at the bus door watching me without speaking. Keith has Leo in a forward seat near the driver. Leo has the stegosaurus on his knee. The bus takes 4 minutes to start. When the engine turns over, it's louder than I'd hoped. I keep the idle low and watch through the windscreen for movement. Nothing comes in. I check the fuel gauge. 3/4 full, more than enough. I drive the bus out of the depot and north on the access road. 3 of the turned come toward the sound on the roadside, then 2 more at the first intersection. But a bus moving at 40 kilometers an hour doesn't have to do anything about things in the verge, and I hold the speed and I don't brake. Keith has an arm around Leo in the seat. Rhonda is behind me, one hand on the seat back, watching out the windscreen. 20 minutes north of the depot, on the main highway, with nothing behind us and open road ahead, I feel the change begin. It's not pain. It's clarity going wrong. The edges of things shifting slightly out of position. The instrument panel not quite where it was a moment ago. I grip the wheel hard. I pull over at a gravel verge beside a farm gate. I leave the engine running. "Keith," I say, "come up here." He comes. "Can you drive this?" I've driven a minibus before. Same principle. Wider. Keep it under 60. The farm road checkpoint is 7 kilometers ahead on the left. There's a green water tank visible from the road at the turnoff. The gate will be staffed. They'll ask about bites. Tell them the truth, all of you. No bites. He looks at me. "You're not coming." "No." He doesn't argue. He's been expecting this since the daycare. I can see it in how steady he is. I get out of the driver's seat. Slowly, using the door frame. The gravel is firm under my feet. The air is cold. I'm not cold. I take the revolver from my jacket. 4 rounds. I look at it for a moment. Then I go around the bus to the fence line beside the gate. There's a playground structure about 20 meters back from the fence. A set of old monkey bars, the kind that came out of a primary school at some point, repurposed for this property, or just left behind. Solid tubular steel, sunk in concrete. I take the pair of zip-tie cuffs from my jacket pocket. I found them in the hardware yard office, the kind you see in a security catalog. I cuff one wrist to the lower bar of the frame. The tie goes tight. It won't come loose. I sit down on the ground with my back against the frame. Leo is watching me through the bus window. He's moved to the window seat on the driver's side, and he has his face pressed to the glass, and the stegosaurus pressed to the glass beside his face. I hold up the revolver so Rhonda can see it from the bus doorway. Then I put it on the ground a meter to my left, clear of my reach. She'll know what it's for. She won't need it, but she needs to know it's there. I call to Keith through the open bus door. "Farm road, 7 kilometers, green water tank on the left. Got it," he says. "Tell them you have a child with you. It'll help." "Ryan." Rhonda is in the doorway. She says my name and then she stops, and there's nothing else to say, and she seems to know that. "Get him there," I say. She closes the bus door. The engine holds idle for a moment. Leo is still at the window. He puts the stegosaurus's nose against the glass, pointed at me. I stay very still until the bus moves. The road is empty after the bus goes. The engine sound carries for about a minute, and then that's gone too. A paddock beyond the fence, dry autumn grass, no cattle. The sky has gone from gold to dark blue, and the first stars are showing in the east, faint, the kind you only see because everything below them has gone dark. The revolver is on the ground a meter to my left, just out of reach. I put it there on purpose. I've been turning this over the whole way through, not writing it down but finding the shape of it. A man I watched turn in under 10 minutes. A woman in a yellow coat who lasted 7 hours. A man who lasted 2 days, 4 days, 12 hours since the ditch. And a bus moving north on a highway with a 5-year-old boy inside it. I stole a car. I left my cousin behind in a crowd. I lied to the people keeping me alive. And then I did what I did after. The ground is cold through the back of my jeans. The farm gate has rust on the hinge posts. Someone has tied a faded orange ribbon to the top rail, the kind that stays long after whatever occasion it was for. The grass to the south is dark and still. The clarity goes wrong again, just for a moment. Then it comes back. Then it goes. There's a sound from the road to the south. Something moving on gravel, uneven rhythm. I don't look. 7 kilometers. The bus makes that in 8 minutes. I count to 60. I count to 60 again. The sound on the gravel gets closer, and then it doesn't matter anymore. The stars are fully out and there are more of them than I expected, more than I've looked at in years. I didn't look at many things for long, before. There was always somewhere else to be, something else to put off or run from. I was good at that. I think about Terry, not the evacuation version of Terry, not the version I've been carrying around like a charge sheet, the earlier version. Terry at 22, the year I got into serious debt at a series of poker games in a flat above a pub in Hamilton, and Terry showing up with a bag of groceries and a very direct conversation about what I needed to do differently. Terry never preached. He just said what was true and waited for you to catch up. I was slow to catch up most of the time. I don't know if Terry made it out of that evacuation crowd. I know I didn't go back to check. That's the part I can't fix, and the part I have to leave where it is. Leo has Terry's way of going still when he's taking something in. I noticed it in the daycare, watching him from across the room. Not a frightened stillness, a watching stillness. He'll be okay. I'm saying that as a fact, not a wish. Rhonda kept him alive for 4 days on limited supplies in a locked building. Keith kept the water going and the doors closed. Those two people have more competence than I gave myself credit for when I was doing nothing useful with my 20s, and the checkpoint is 7 kilometers up, a sealed road with a bus that has 3/4 of a tank, and Keith's hands on the wheel.